I noticed that the refrigerator had no light bulb in it. And then I looked and I saw that they had removed the bulb from the refrigerator and replaced one of the hallway light bulbs with a refrigerator bulb. But also, I believe they had 4 kids. And I was like, oh, that explains that.
Butterscotch Shenanigans.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 152 of Coffee with Butterscotch, the game dev comedy podcast of Butterscotch Shenanigans. I'm Seth, and I'm the games programmer.
I'm Adam, and I'm just kind of sitting here.
I'm Sam, and I'm the man who mulches.
And this is a show where we talk about life, business, and working in the games industry. Today is May 12th, 2018. Before we get started, we have a warning. Anything can happen on this show. There's going to be profanity and, I guess, singing like Creed. So
You've been warned.
So this show should not be listened to by children or apparently anyone else.
But before we get started, though, what is the actual date? Because now I'm super unsure.
May 12th.
Is that the 12th?
28th.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's
I was
really,
gonna say,
you got to really, we got to help
May
you out
28th, May 12th.
I got it. Yeah, I felt like, cause I heard May 12th in that, but I was like, I'm pretty sure
No,
that happened a long
that's
time
where the
ago.
kind of the like May 12th.
It does sound like a Creed.
May 12th.
Well, May 12th.
Yeah.
Creed, what are you going to do?
Good times.
All right. Well, first thing we got to talk about this week is that, here at the Bscotch Shenanigans, we've got rules.
We got principals.
Actually, we don't have any rules, but we do have some suggestions that we've stuck up on the wall in our office, and it's called the Butterscotch Shenanigans Principles. And we have them available at bit.ly/BS_principles. So if you'd like to follow the bouncing ball as we run through the principles,
That brings me back.
we've covered
being a 4-year-old.
Yeah.
Yeah, they always did that. Like they sang songs and they would
Do
slap.
they still do that ever?
I've seen.
I'm
they did it
sure it's a
in
thing.
the Invader Zim Christmas episode.
There you go.
They do have a bouncing ball. But that itself was probably 10 years ago by now.
Yes. And for those listening, if you haven't seen Invader Zim, get the fuck over there and watch that show. Because
there's only one season of it. So you can you can blow through that just so fast.
Nobody liked it, and then it died. But in retrospect,
It was amazing.
It was great. So we've covered, I think, the first
Nobody knows.
however many principles, and there's 3 left, which we do know.
Yes.
So we're going to cover those 3 principles and talk about them in this week's episode right now. First principle of the last 3 principles.
I've heard happily. Let's get there.
And the first principle is this: always know why. What does it mean, Adam?
Yeah, Adam.
It means have a reason for the things you do. You know?
My God.
Just like
What a insightful.
yeah, but the hilarious part about that seemingly super obvious statement is that almost nobody,
knows why
almost
the fuck they're doing
none of the time, has any reason for what they're doing. They're doing it because they're on some sort of an autopilot. And that doesn't just mean like they're being told what to do and that's why they're doing it, but also you just do things out of habit. You just
Almost
do
everything.
stuff. Almost everything. We very rarely explicitly think about the things that we're doing and why we're doing them. So always know why isn't necessarily say like get to the core truth, because as you'll always hear me say, there isn't one.
Yeah, it's not necessarily about establishing your life purpose.
Right.
Yeah,
It's good to do.
If you go deep
can.
enough, there's no reason for anything. So
Just turtles.
So don't go too deep.
Yeah.
But go maybe
It's
2
it's
layers deep.
Exactly. Go deep enough that you have a reason, that there's some belief system at play. There's some set of evidence around you that you've gathered together to make you do the thing that you're doing, and that you've thought about, is this even a good idea? Is this thing good for me? Is this good for what I'm trying to accomplish?
And then the how is actually the big part too. So good example from my personal sketching stuff. First teacher I got, I was doing some sketching on webcam, and she's looking at it and she's like, oh, try holding your pencil like from the back, almost like a wand. So you hold it like straight up in your hand with your thumb sort of on the back of it. And you like basically you choke up on the back, you know,
Keep your eye on the paper.
And I was like, why? And she was like, well, it'll make your lines basically easier to do because it makes it so you can't control it with your fingers now. You have to do it with your wrist and your shoulder and your elbow. And
your
your
hips.
lines and your hips. Yeah, it's all in the hips. So now you can actually make these really long, nice looking perfectly clean strokes as opposed to doing like these little like tiny hideous.
So it
hair mark
trains
stuff.
you to use the other parts of your arm.
Yeah, and I was like, huh. I didn't realize that asking why about how I was holding my pencil was a option. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's the thing is always know why is basically it's synonymous with question everything, except some people just stop there for some reason. They're just like, I don't believe that or whatever. And they just kind of leave it there.
Very annoying people.
Yeah. You have to take it the next step and now have a hypothesis and do something as a consequence of that question.
Yeah. And I've always found that, as a good practice, if you try to go too wise deep, that's usually where you start to find interesting things. So if you're like, I want to eat ice cream tonight. Why do I want to eat ice cream? Well, it's just something that I enjoy.
I love ice cream.
But then if you go, but why? Why do I get so much satisfaction out of eating ice cream such that I do it all the time?
It's because we're evolutionarily programmed to seek out high caloric food items.
Yes.
Or
represented by fat and sugar.
And once you know that,
What do you want to just be a dumb animal?
What do you want
ice
to
cream?
Or do you want to take control of your destiny?
Sometimes, yeah. I want to be a
Exactly.
dumb animal.
Sometimes that's completely
And that's fine, as long as you know why.
Because now you know why, and now you're making a decision about
so
it.
if you say, "Oh, I know I want ice cream," it's because I'm a dumb animal.
And I'm
okay with that.
comfortable with that fact.
You just go get your ice cream. But the point is, you know why.
We're all just weird, kind of smooth monkeys running around eating ice cream.
Some of us are smoother than others because of good skincare regimen.
That's true. That's true.
So, but my first sort of brush with this actually came from a course that I took in college, luckily, that was called Presentation Matters. And it was ostensibly about how to use the Office product suite. So like Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, all this Excel and stuff, so that you could go into the workforce and actually have skills that all other college students just did not have. Okay.
You mean the ones that everybody puts in their resume where
they don't actually know
proficient in Word?
Exactly.
Proficient.
Oh,
by the way, if you put that you're proficient at something, that means you don't know how the fuck it works. I think that's what that word means. Right?
You could enter things into cells in Excel. That's about the extent of it. So the whole course was about taking this technology and first exploring it and then doing really whack stuff with it. So like we built what were essentially websites.
That's a good word.
Functional.
Whack.
It's good. Like functional websites that weren't obviously connected to the web, but functional in terms of like bopping around to different pages and stuff inside of Excel using macros and all this stuff. So I made a life tracker, which was 6 different sheets where it was all like formatted up and had pictures and stuff. And then you could enter in like, oh, here's a book I read. And you hit a button and it would like fill out this beautiful bar graph thing. And so like we did all this stuff. But the first 3 weeks of it, every single week, someone had to come in and give a presentation. 2 people. And it was a 14-person class. So like really intense. And no matter what you did, the professor would always just ask you why.
Why'd you do that?
Yeah. So he would stop at the end of the presentation. He'd be like, all right, go back to the first slide. And then he'd be like, so you put your logo for this thing like up in the top left corner. He was like, why? And people didn't have an answer for the first 3 weeks because they didn't realize that you had to have an answer
to actually
for
think
every single piece of what you were doing.
You should think about everything.
He'd be like, why did you choose that, that line thickness on that? Why is it that color? Why did you think about how that works in relation to this? Why? And so by the time you get done, it's not about learning. Like you could tell there are people who try to bullshit and they make it like a little bit of the ways in. And then at some point, like,
everything falls
apart. And then like everybody starts getting really, really well trained to actually answer that question with everything. And that's what I started applying on the life side that ended up sort of helping me, I feel like, get out of a general
I also like
slump.
this from the design side with Edward Tufte. I think Tufte. I believe there's an E in there. Who's sort of a sort of a nerd celebrity for the group of people who love design, especially of data, and how to present it. Because I read through back when I was doing my science career, I read through those very, very carefully for the same reason, which is I saw all these people presenting data, and it was just always so hard to figure out what was happening and why. There are all these conventions that people use that don't help with actually understanding what you're looking at. And so at some point I was just like, somebody must have actually thought about this and have reasons for things, And so I found this collection of books by Edward Tufte that are just fucking stellar because he just actually goes through and he breaks down all the different ways that people display data and why, and then gives examples of how to think about it and do it all better.
They're beautiful
with way
books
more
too, which I guess they should be.
They should be. They ought to be, definitely. He has one from a long time ago, from like 2000 or something, about PowerPoint. Which I have not gotten and will never get because that's not the life that I live. That was also a long time ago, but it does make me very curious, what's in there.
This kind of also makes me think about the door problem. So this is there's an article. I can't remember. Was it in Gama Sutra?
I think it's just someone's like blog.
Someone's blog. So I think maybe if you just look up, the door problem game design.
I'll Google it while you're talking about it.
Yeah.
See if I find it.
that there's this excellent article just about what is involved as a designer for implementing some new idea into a video game or whatever. And so they use the simple concept of, if you just say our game is going to have doors in it, and on the face of it, you just think, yeah, I know what a door is and what it does. This is an obvious and simple problem. And so but then this person goes on to list, okay, well, what are the things you need to ask about in order to actually put doors in your game? And the list is hundreds of items long. It's like,
it's very funny.
It's like, how big are the doors? If there's something bigger than the door, can it go through the door anyway? Are doors breakable? Do they have hinges? Do they swing both ways or only one way?
Can they lock?
Can they lock? And if they can lock, where are the keys? Are keys specific to doors or are keys universal, right?
How many keys can a player hold?
Yeah. Is there a key inventory? Where do the keys go?
Can enemies
you lose
open
a
doors?
key? Can enemies pick up keys?
Can you shoot through a door?
Right.
Yeah. If you Google the door problem, you'll find it immediately. So I don't know. So the thing that keeps on coming up is by Liz England. So
I think it's
yeah.
So I don't know if she's the original writer. She actually refers to it as a classic design problem. So maybe this is something taught in some whatever. But she has the sort of the formulation of it that's just very clear
but it just comes, the core of it is just the idea of nothing is as simple as it seems, and you have to think real fucking hard about all the reasons why a thing would work, why it wouldn't work, and then how to go about it.
I had one of these making spaghetti yesterday. So
you had a spagooter epiphany.
I had a spaghetti Y situation. Nice. So I had like 30 minutes before I needed to go pick up my wife from the bus station. She was coming back from a trip. And so I was like, I want to get this bulk meal ready. But usually this thing takes about an hour to make because there's a lot of moving components. And so I just thought about it for a second, and I realized that
maybe we should start with animals that aren't alive,
not moving around. It really sped it up. Well, like part of it was actually taking I usually do a clove of garlic and actually crush the damn thing, right? And like that takes like 5 minutes to manually mince some garlic. So I was at the grocery store, I got a little can of it.
Just get the minced garlic.
It's already done.
Boom, 5 minutes.
Read the ingredients. I was like, it's fine.
That's time in a can right there.
So bring and also the ingredients probably include salt. You're like, no, I don't have to put salt in anymore either.
There wasn't any salt in there, but I think some lemon juice or something. So, but the big thing was I realized that I've been doing the vegetables in the wrong order because like certain vegetables need to cook down, and mushrooms in particular cook down like a ton. Like you put a huge mushroom in to saute and it turns into like like a pinhead. Yep. And the problem is if you do it late, then you end up having these chewy mushrooms that aren't actually done, right?
And if you do it too early, you end up with grains of sand.
Basically. So
that are flavored like mushrooms.
What I did was actually did the mushrooms first, along with the onions and garlic and stuff, and then let that just sit while I was doing everything else. And for somehow it cut out like 25 minutes of prep for the whole thing. So I got it done in 35 minutes flat. Boom. Ran out the door. And then I was like, I should have just taken about 4 minutes to think about, the order of ops. In this.
Yes. Now, the unfortunate reality of asking all these questions is that you must take time to think about things.
Yes.
Which does take time. And it also means that's time that you're not spending on YouTube or Netflix or Reddit or Twitter or whatever. So it's kind of boring to just sit there, but you have to embrace it. You got to be okay with that and understand that it means so. It's for something and you're getting something out of it. All right, next principle, play the long game.
Yeah, this means don't screw your future self with the decisions that you make right now, even if they seem really good right now.
So this is just your classic ice cream problem in the sense that your human brain is almost purely designed to push you via automated behaviors into making decisions that are very gratifying in the immediate short term.
Yeah, it's pushing you into fleeing scary things right now.
Yeah.
And eating
ice cream, then taking a nap, then waking up, grabbing your phone off the nightstand, and then just watching YouTube for 6 hours.
Is this like the Butterscotch hierarchy of needs versus Maslow's? So it's like flee scary things, eat sugary foods, watch YouTube, actually do stuff.
Yeah. And so this is the problem is that you have all these sort of subconscious instincts that push you into doing certain things, and you have to override them consciously. So, this kind of comes back to this always know why, know why it is that you have urges to do certain things. And once you sort of have that understanding, then you can start playing the long game. And I had a thought a couple weeks back about sort of what willpower is. And I think really it just comes down to willpower is the ability to sacrifice short-term pleasure for long-term gains. That's basically just what willpower is.
It's overriding your dumb animal self.
Yeah. And then, and the thing is that does take energy. Like it's not an easy thing to do. Right. And it's something that takes practice. And so you got to kind of understand what it takes to do that and what kinds of pitfalls there are going to be. Fortunately, we do have a YouTube talk called Do What You Want. So if you just look that up on YouTube,
there you go.
Then you'll find that, and then now you'll know how to do it. So, all right.
Well, from a business context too, it sort of informs how we do everything in the studio, right? So the goal is not necessarily to, if we wanted to just make a crap load of money right now, we would probably, we would pursue very different games from the ones that we're building.
Probably try to sell the studio or something.
Probably try to sell the studio, see if any overseas investors would want to take a piece, since apparently that's a thing. There's a bunch of other sort of general business trajectory stuff that would be very different if we weren't sort of plotting.
We'd also probably do an ICO.
We would.
We would start a cryptocurrency. We would be in VR, and we would be in San Francisco looking for investors right now.
We would try to depend on investor funding instead of on stuff that our customers pay us.
Right. And we would not do this podcast.
No.
Because this podcast is a long-term thing that we are working on.
We only vaguely know what it's for.
We're learning over time.
I'm pretty sure it's for good reason.
Yeah. Well, it's for community. It's for community sort of cultivation and growth, right? And that is something that it's like a garden. It just takes a long time. You got to plant a lot of seeds, and you just got to water them once a week for 1 hour. That's how gardening works, as I understand it. So there's just a lot of things that you have to do, and sometimes you got to give things up in the short term, to make that happen. And then the final principle from the Bscotch Studio Principles is align thyself. So I like to use the metaphor of a boat. Which is, when you're doing stuff on a team, everybody's doing something. And if you simplify the metaphor, if you're all on a boat, everybody's paddling, right? And if Sam is pedaling off to the left and Adam's pedaling off to the right, and I'm just on the back of the boat just slapping the water with my paddle, we're not going anywhere, And so it's all about understanding.
Somebody else is just wishing that our boat was a submarine. And just sitting there.
Yeah.
They're like, why doesn't this boat have a motor?
And we're like, that's a great question. If we had that would probably solve a lot of problems. So the reason that the principle is listed as align thyself is because it's your responsibility to either understand the direction that everybody else on the team is going, get on board with that, and then find a way to also carry the team in that direction. Or to figure out what direction you think the team should be going and get everybody else
going
on board with you, right?
Yeah, the point is it's far more important for everybody to be in alignment than for you to get exactly what you want.
Yes, because the team just needs to move somewhere. Yeah. Because every direction is forward, basically, as long as you're going somewhere.
Right. If everyone's working at odds or even if people are working in generally the same direction, then this is just some vector math, right? You're wasting a lot of energy. Because people are only part of your energy is actually going towards that aligned direction.
That's right.
So the idea is if you're trying to accomplish something as a team, you just gotta put your ego away a little bit, and you say, my primary goal is to create a board and get on it.
We want this boat to get over there.
Yeah.
Or literally anywhere.
Just somewhere.
Literally anywhere. But everybody needs to agree on where the fuck that boat's going.
Because where we are is in the middle of the water.
Yeah.
Which,
lots of sharks.
You're gonna die.
Yeah, but this requires, again, just sort of like always know why. This requires everybody in the group actually sitting down and saying, "Where's this boat going?
Where are we?"
Because if no one has even thought about that, or if the sort of the vision set forth by whoever, if the person in charge of visioning, if that's the thing you got,
that's the corporate vision officer,
correct?
The CVO.
The CVO. So if that person just sits down and says something like that nobody can get behind or even contribute to.
All right, everybody, we're going to be making $60 million this year. That's our company's purpose.
Yeah.
Then end of story.
People can't. Me, not at all.
It doesn't affect any individuals. People can't align to that because that's not an actual destination. That's just a.
And it's totally binary because either you're going to hit it and that's fine, and then or you're done. Everybody's just like, well, fuck, now what?
Yeah, because you got to shoot for a shore. You just got to know what that shore is all about.
Yeah. It's about understanding your process and how you're going to move.
Yeah.
And don't worry about it. All right, so those are the studio principles.
Yeah, we did it.
As we currently understand it, it only took 3 weeks.
And I believe someone in the Discord actually made a printable version of it too.
Nice.
So maybe go in the podcast Discord at discord.gg/Bscotch. And
then you scroll up.
Either scroll up or just ask and see.
Yeah. Well, the one that we have at the Bitly link is printable, but it's also colored on the back. So it's just gonna use some ink.
It's basically completely black.
It's basically unreadable. But the text is white, which is nice. Right. All right. So otherwise, industry news. The GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation,
has arrived.
It has arrived. It arrived on May 5th.
Fourth. I think. Fourth.
So what has happened? Well, we are up to date.
We're now up to date as of Friday morning.
So this is the
day it was due.
Yeah, and this is the European huge. We talked about it last week, so if you kind of missed that, check out that episode. But in summary, there's a big new law in Europe that is all about how companies manage data.
The way I think about this is like, you know how currently you have all these terms of services that you just sort of click on, right? You're like, iTunes. Yeah, I read that.
Everybody's got a privacy policy where they just go, you have none. And you're like, I agree.
Yeah, great. This is great. So essentially what the GDPR does is it steps in and makes it kind of okay that you didn't read jack shit about how these companies are doing stuff with your stuff. That's sort of the best way to think about it.
And kind of the big key to it is that anything that's like truly important to your privacy, you have to now grant explicit consent to. So they can't bury a thing in their privacy policy and just say, well, you agreed to it. Like if they wanted to put in there, you agreed to us just sharing your pictures that you put on our service with anybody
we feel like for fun. And
then that would be the kind of thing that now they actually have to ask for explicit consent for. And so, so it's a good protective measure, but it doesn't fit super well with the video games industry because the kind of data that we collect, a lot of it is just like binary data that describes your game progress. Right?
Yeah, we don't care, what your address is.
No,
we don't care.
We don't have any of that.
Yeah, we don't care how many kids you have.
And lots of other companies, especially the kind of the social media platforms and the ad companies that this regulation is specifically targeting, all they have on you is personal data.
Yeah.
Like every piece of data they have on you is something that you could understand, you know what it is, and it's about you as a human being. And so the GDPR was designed for that. Doesn't fit super squarely with what we're doing. So there's still some kind of weird stuff that we and other video game companies are not 100% sure that we are square on because the regulation just doesn't fit. And so we're all kind of just like waiting for somebody to get sued or something and
see what happens. So the regulation is largely not for us. It's for advertisements.
No, but it does hit everybody.
It's for Facebook and Google. I think it's probably the easiest.
It's for advertising platforms. So there's a TED Radio hour from this past week about attention, which is pretty fascinating. And it's definitely worth a listen if you're looking for other, podcasts to check out. And they said something in there that seems obvious, but it's not that intuitive. And it's also very creepy if you think about it when it comes to all this sort of like data management, privacy stuff, which is that people talk about your attention as being a commodity, right? And so Facebook or Google or whatever, they are attention brokers where they grab your attention and then they redirect it to an advertisement that somebody else has paid for, right? But the interesting thing about attention is that it's not worth anything by itself. So nobody cares if all you do is look at an ad.
This is the impressions problem with ads.
This is the impressions versus clicks versus, it's the idea of a conversion funnel, which is what the person paying. So there's two people on the transaction, right? There's Google, then there's the company that's buying an advertisement and putting it on Google, and then there's you. And the only reason that a company is willing to pay for those advertisements is because they believe that they can manipulate your behavior. Right. And that's why those ads have value. And it's why people are shown anywhere between 4,000 and 10,000 ads per day in the United States when they're on the internet or whatever.
Or just driving. It's one of the driving home every day after work because I live just south of downtown St. Louis, which means on my drive home, the arch is there. It's the symbol of St. Louis. It's a glorious, enormous structure, right? Except there are like 3 fucking billboards. That there is no moment on my drive home where I have an unobstructed view because of fucking billboards. It makes me so
but
angry
here's the thing.
every time I drive home.
It's easy to think about these. They're ads. They're advertisements. They're showing you their product. But if you think about them as as these companies are purchasing behavior modification from Google or from Facebook. Basically, these companies are saying, hey, Facebook, you've got a good platform that I can use to manipulate someone's behavior, right? That's what an ad actually seeks to do, is to change something about what you do in your life, right? And so we've just kind of created this giant web of voluntary behavior modification where we all jump into Facebook, we all jump into Google, and we're just totally cool with all these companies trying to basically take away our ability to make decisions about what we want, what we like, what we see, what we do.
I think that's a super dark angle on it, because I think the reality also is that like advertising by itself is not necessarily an evil construct, right? Because like there's been plenty of times where I've seen an advertisement something, I'm like, yes, I do need that in my the sham wow.
And it did technically manipulate your behavior.
But I don't feel manipulated.
No, but think about this. Advertising as an end is fine. It's literally just telling somebody about a product.
Right.
But the means by which advertisements are delivered,
because of the hyper targeting, then it gets creepy, because it's essentially saying you look like a person who's susceptible.
So think about the fact that all news outlets have become entertainment.
Yeah.
The reason is that they want your attention so that they can redirect that attention to advertisements, because that's where their money comes from, right? And so the advertisements themselves are not a problem. It's the fact that everybody wants everything for free.
You're saying that it's sort of distorted the content itself in order to better fit.
Yeah. And so one of the examples in the TED Radio Hour episode was that, YouTube, for example, uses algorithms to decide what people might be interested in. And so things just trend toward sensationalist clickbait. And so they have their up next and their recommended, column on the right side. And the researcher was talking about how she started watching some political rallies, and then to see what the algorithm would start to serve up. And she would just always choose the next. So whenever they said, hey, up next, here's this next thing. And no matter what part of the political spectrum she watched rallies for, the recommended videos always took her into extremist videos by the time she was like 6 videos deep, right? Because they're always more attention grabbing than the one before it. Right. And they just want to keep you there. And so the problem isn't the ads. It's the fact that attention needs to be harvested, like a crop and so
packaged up and sold.
Yeah. And the only way to do that is to just keep ramping up the sensationalism and the shock factor and whatever. Right. And so we're kind of reaching this, like, I think things like the GDPR kind of speak to the fact that we're reaching this crucial point where people are feeling this.
Oh yeah.
Like people are feeling like something is wrong with the way that all these things are coming together. It's kind of hard to express it because it's a very complicated system, right? But something feels really fucking wrong with all this, Right. So anyway, GDPR.
Well, I think there's been some other impacts on indie devs in particular. So I got a note from Ooblets.
Yeah.
So Ooblets is a fantastic looking sort of Pokemon-esque, like very cute Pokemon-esque game. I think you grow the creatures. You can capture them and you grow them as seeds or something. And then you do battle with them. It's extremely cute. And it has sort of like a low poly, just adorable aesthetic to it. It's been in dev for a while, and I think it's 2 people working on it. And they sent out a note to everybody on the newsletter basically saying, hey, because of the GDPR, we're not going to be sending more newsletters because we don't have the bandwidth to do whatever we don't know what the privacy compliance is that we need to do in order to be able to send this newsletter and not get sued for $10 million from the EU. So we're just going to not. So if you want to follow us, I guess just follow us on Twitter or something. Thanks for hanging out. I think it's like those newsletters I always look forward to because they're informative and shared a bunch of GIFs, and then it's just it's a nice longer format than something like Twitter. So it's kind of a bummer, right? And that's the first one I've gotten from an indie studio. I don't know.
The reason that it works going to like Twitter is because now they've basically offloaded all the compliance issues onto Twitter or onto Facebook or whatever, because those users aren't users of Ooblets' platform. They're users of Facebook or something. Which
is a huge bummer because like a big part of the thing we talk about as far as one of our primary strategies that we always espouse is, email marketing is just one of the best things because people actually read your stuff. You can send people notes that are longer form, like our ballyhoo that's, trying to build value in a completely different way than just trying to sell people stuff all the time. And now there's this big question for indie devs in particular, like, can you, or will you get in trouble?
Well, I think, after having done, obviously I'm not a lawyer. None of us are lawyers. So who knows? But what I've learned from going through this experience, I mostly handled it with our legal team, is that for like Ooblets' case, just kind of specifically, it's not even because there's a very easy technical thing they could do that satisfies all GDPR stuff, which is that all they would have to do is that if somebody unsubscribed, they just purge that email from their whatever they've got, right? That would be now 100% sufficient.
You no longer have an unsubscribers list,
right?
Which a lot of mail companies do.
Yeah, and we don't. So people unsubscribe from us; they're just gone now, right?
Good
for that.
Get out of here.
But that actually, even though that satisfies the sort of technical and actual privacy requirements of the GDPR, it doesn't satisfy the bureaucratic requirements because you have to have a privacy policy. That privacy policy has to include a whole bunch of stuff that basically explains like how you're managing GDPR and all this kind of stuff. You have to be involved in this privacy shield. If you're hosted in the United States, you have to be part of this privacy shield thing, which basically is you setting up an agreement with the US government to say like, yes, I'm involving myself in this treaty between the United States and the EU that says that I will protect people's data if it comes from the EU. Because without a doubt, that Ooblets mailing list has people from the EU in it.
Yep.
And so there's no, even if you're doing the thing you need to do, that's actually completely insufficient now. Right.
Now you got to go through all the
this stuff. And some of it is very wacky and difficult to understand. And like the privacy shield thing in particular was kind of the last piece of the puzzle for us. Cause there were still, I just had questions all the way up until like the last hour that I was firing off to our lawyer, trying to figure out what we were supposed to do, you know? But it costs us $350 a year just to like be a part of it. That's the cheapest end. And it also opens us up to a thing where we now have this whole like binding arbitration thing that users who complain about our privacy handling can sort of like opt into and force our hand into paying for. Right. So in this sort of like roundabout way, it opens up this very strange liability. But the liability is actually not very expensive. But if you're an indie studio, just trying to figure out, because if we had to do this back when we started the studio, we might not have had Bscotch ID.
Yeah, we definitely would.
Because we wouldn't have had any idea. We wouldn't have been able to afford the legal cost of figuring out how to do it and be above board.
Mm-hmm.
So this definitely throws a wrench in things.
It does. Yeah, it's one of those. But on the other hand, like that's, you know, it's hard to say that that's actually even bad because it actually still is good for consumers.
Yeah.
To know that like if you go, you know, if some indie company goes and sets up a mailing list and whatever, that you now know that you can be protected, and that if they get your email address, they have to use it responsibly and all this kind of stuff. It sort of takes away the Wild West component of it. But it does do it in a way that I think, but the thing that bugs me the most about the whole thing really is actually that privacy shield thing. It's just such fucking bullshit, because really all the privacy shield says is like, I'm going to enforce all the things I said I'm going to do. Right. It doesn't actually change anything.
You just pay $350.
You just pay $350 now for some reason. Right.
So it's not actually a mechanism.
No, it's actually, you have to be GDPR compliant before you can like be in privacy shield, or I guess actually that's not quite right, because privacy shield existed before GDPR did.
So maybe,
but if you're GDPR compliant, you are privacy shield compliant. So like, why then would I have to?
Okay, here's the thing. So privacy shield is your college diploma.
Correct.
That after you did your tuition,
you did all the actual work.
Now you got to pay $50 at the very end
to get your paper,
to get that piece of paper that says you did it.
And now
that's what it is.
Yeah. And then every year they ask you for more money despite that fact.
Right. And they're like, hey, you know how you paid us every cent that you will ever make for the next 10 years? Can we just have more of that? That sounds good. So maybe, I guess, so now going forward, the EU is going to start asking us for donations as an alum.
Well, privacy shield will continue to, but yeah, in any event, this is
an alum.
It's just one of those weird things that like, there's good intentions around all of it, and most of it is good. And really the privacy shield only exists because the US basically has no privacy rights for its citizens, right?
Correct.
And so,
or just rights in general, except for guns. You got to have a gun. Make sure you have your gun.
Yeah. It's the principal one.
Yeah. And you got to be able to talk about it.
Yeah. But I think importantly, we don't. So here's the thing. In the US, we don't actually have gun rights in the sense that you don't have a right to own a gun. You have an obligation. Okay. Yeah. You have to have 35 guns. That's the law.
People from other countries, they don't understand. Like, you got to have a gun.
It keeps us safe. Anyway.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's interesting because, the only reason that privacy shield has to exist is because of that fact. And it just seems so unnecessary, because the amount of burden that it would take to basically just say like, yeah, if you're in the US, you should also treat people's data a little bit responsibly and just have kind of a minimal set of requirements. Would actually, like, even a very small set would basically cover GDPR's requirements. and would be good for everybody. Not good for advertisers.
Well, the thing is also, like, I know that, and my question with the newsletter thing in particular is that I know that most people use something like MailChimp or, Crate Center, some of these other newsletter services.
For those, typically when you unsubscribe, it just purges you from
it. So because I assume compliance then is it's similar to using Twitter.
Actually, sure. Yeah. If you're using it, if you're only using MailChimp and everything is being stored there,
then you should be fine.
Then you're probably
you're fine if they're fine.
Yeah. Sort of no, because actually you're not, because they're considered a data processor and you're considered a data controller because it's your data that MailChimp is using on your behalf, right? So there are actually different regulations for each of those groups. So you still have to go through all the stuff.
It's got very wrinkly.
Yeah. So I spent a lot of time reading about, talking to our lawyers, and just like setting up all the technical stuff to figure all this shit out. Like it is no small thing. It took a long time.
But I think importantly, if you're a new studio and you're just starting up and you're like, oh shit, this GDPR thing is terrifying. Yeah, I mean, kind of, but if you think about, you can do things to mitigate or just eliminate completely your exposure to these problems. Essentially by making, single player games where you're not, serving up ads, or you're not collecting lots of user data through third party services like Google AdWords or whatever. And just make premium games.
There you go. We might see a rise on that side of the fence.
Yeah. I mean, that's the way that you're.
It is my hope that this kind of thing, plus hopefully some future regulations, because we need the US to get on board at least to some degree for this to all really matter. But my hope is really that we see the demise of free to play and free to experience.
Well, it's going to make ads less profitable.
Yeah, I hate
in
ads.
general.
I want them to all die.
And it's also going to make a lot of younger studios kind of nervous about the consequences of serving up ads, collecting user data, using Facebook sign in, which again, that makes ads more profitable on Facebook. Like the more things they can track about you, the better they can target ads.
Yeah. Just the fact that, we could, if we wanted to, opt into Facebook Beacon is what it's called, right? Where we can just put a thing on our website. That would make it so that if you visit there and at least it used to be have just ever touched Facebook. I don't know. But they got in trouble, but they do what they want.
They're just hoovering up.
They're tracking you across the whole.
They're tracking you across everywhere. So if you you wouldn't even have logged into our website using Facebook. You would just visit it
after using Facebook.
After using Facebook,
or just while
and they would then know that you, as a human being, as an individual person, had gone to our website and kind of like what you did there.
And that's that's attached to your name.
Yeah, that's the thing we could just choose to do. And before GDPR, we didn't have to tell you that shit. Mm-hmm. We could just do it.
We did.
So we didn't do it, but we could have. but we did use Google Analytics, right? Which actually is basically the same deal. And again, that's not a thing that people opt into. Mm-hmm. It's just almost every website you go to has Google Analytics in it.
Well, you want to be able to see how people are using the site. That's the interesting thing about it, is like, because you, as a person who manages the content or the website or whatever else, you want to know what the user flow is and sort of like where people are coming from.
Yeah, so you can make a better product.
But I don't care about individual people.
No.
Which is the weird part.
We don't
Google
get
does.
that. Yeah, exactly. we don't get that from Google, but
they get.
But technically, like, the data is there if Google decides to use it in that way. Mm-hmm. And I think to me that was kind of the most interesting exercise of all of the GDPR prep stuff, was just going through all of our third party relationships and just asking, what are they actually doing with, like, what are we exposing our players to by using these services? Because even we have ads in all of our mobile games, or used to. And it was a question that we always had and never like really dug into, because I think none of us wanted.
We kept it on that surface.
Yeah, exactly. We didn't want to dig too deep.
We didn't ask too wise deep.
Stare into the abyss.
because we had literally just wrapped up some additional software that we did not control into our games so that, to serve ads to people, right? But we don't know what we don't know what it's doing. We do not know what that.
Or even if we did kind of reverse engineer it and look at sort of the API calls and stuff. Once the data leaves,
then what?
And goes over to Google, what are they doing?
What are they doing?
What are they doing? Because also, if you're on an Android phone, or even if you're on an iPhone and you signed into your Google account via Chrome, via whatever, it's possible that the Google Ads app, like the Google Ads API inside of the game, can access that information, and it can attach your behaviors in the game to you personally. It's
and I don't know what permission setting is required from Android to make that happen. Like, do you
right?
Was that technically allowed the whole time we were using it? I have no idea. So yeah, I think it was. I do think it's good. I think it's going to cause some sort of near-term damage, but it's going to, but really only for very small studios and for people that are just getting started. But I think on the whole that itself, I think, is still kind of a good thing. in a sense that people
It's
now
good for
have
the
to know
herd.
why they're doing stuff. And they have to have reasons. They have to have thought through stuff. I mean, the days of just being able to put up a Google form and collect email addresses and never worry about that data, right? And never worry about what's going to happen to it or how it's being stored or how long you keep it, or if you're going to sell it or whatever. Like those days are now just kind of over. And I do think on the whole, that's a good thing.
Yeah, good riddance.
Yeah. But man, it makes life way more difficult.
Also, speaking of shady entities controlling all kinds of weird information about individuals, let's talk about fascism. Specifically,
Plantar's fascism.
Plantar's fascism.
Well, Adam's been running.
I've been running, but I've been.
This is a weird segue, but we'll get there.
This is a weird segue. I've been running. I've been part of. I'm not doing the hardcore quest for gains that Seth is doing, but I'm doing my own sort of
The quest for quads.
quest for just getting in better health. You know, like sort of gently.
Not as punchy of a title, but
It's not as punchy of an activity either. You know. But part of that has been I'm trying to run more because I want to be in better cardiovascular health.
The quest for just getting in better health, you know?
But things like, because I'm not trying to get big muscles, but I want to be able to, you know, climb stairs. I want my heart rate to be a little bit lower. So, because I think every heartbeat is one step closer to death. So the fewer I have, the longer I live, I think is how that works.
Yep.
So I want to, you know, I want to improve that. And so I started running. It's been going great. I've been running a mile at a time, a few times a week. And this weekend I was feeling pretty good. And so on Saturday night, I was like, I did my one lap. So it's a mile around a park near my house. Finished it. And I was like, I can do another one of these, you know? So I did a second one. I did it even faster and it just felt fucking great. That was in the evening of Saturday. Then Sunday morning, I got up and I was like, I still feel great. And I did it again.
That exuberance, man.
Felt so good. And then like an hour later, my foot just started to fucking hurt. Like the arch, you know, part of it.
And what you discovered is you stepped on a fascism.
I stepped on a fascist. And now I've got Plantar's fasciitis.
Yeah.
And
So what's a fascia, just so people understand?
So fascia is like the weird sort of
the web, right?
It's like the webby sort of like hard is the wrong word, but it's elastic, but like really kind of tough tissue that sort of sits around meat and tendons. It's kind of what like it holds everything.
It's sort
together.
of like a sheet of tendon.
Yeah,
right.
That's what's on your bone where the tendon gets on.
And it also
there.
wraps around stuff.
Yeah.
So, so that stuff can get inflamed, which is just basically when your body is like, I don't like what's happening, and just like sort of like sends immune cells there, and like it starts to swell and it causes damage or whatever. So that'll typically happen if you cause some sort of damage by like something rubbing how it wasn't supposed to or whatever. So anyway, apparently that happened, which is just so fucking annoying because I was hitting a peak when I was feeling fucking great. And then my body was like, I'm going to knock you down a peg.
But if we look at
don't get too overconfident here.
Don't get too
If we look at the graph of your miles run though, because essentially what you're doing is 1 mile a day. And then suddenly in one 12-hour window, 4 miles.
Yeah.
So
apparently this is sort of the main cause of plantar fasciitis is sort
step
of like,
function of
exercise. It's sort of like how aggressively you go after it relative to how you normally do, or if you're only running on hard surfaces and never on soft surfaces and whatever. And so those two runs as well, because previously I mostly was running on a treadmill, but this time it was all sidewalk. You know? So like I just did all the things wrong.
So I think the idea is, you just got to get in there,
but we should maybe think about,
but don't pull too many G's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's how you black out.
That's how you black out, and then you're gonna have a problem. So just watch out for that acceleration.
Yeah, but this is kind of interesting thing. This has happened to me every single time I've tried to get back into shape, which has prompted me this time. Now I'm on a much longer. I'm playing the long game now. So I started back in basically like January-ish, maybe a little earlier. And it's just like work out a few days a week. Don't hit it too hard. Just like run a little bit. Because it used to be every time I get back in, I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm going to get buff, And I would do my first set of exercise. I'd come in on that day.
That is a very long-term goal.
It is, yeah. But I was thinking about doing it now.
Right. So you're always going to be disappointed today.
Yeah, but that wasn't the problem. The problem was
you're going to vomit all over.
Then I would work out way too hard and then injure myself too much, so that then I was incapacitated for at least a week. And then by the time that week kind of dried up, I was like, I don't want to go back and do this, because it's all about building those habits. But if you just immediately fuck it up by injuring yourself, which is why I'm bummed right now, because I was doing such a good job of not injuring myself by taking it slow.
So there's
I can't run for a while.
So there's a credible, completely accurate statistic.
This is a good start.
Which says that it takes about 66 days minimum to establish a new habit.
I thought it was 21.
I thought it was 10,000 hours.
No, that's to become an expert.
Okay.
To establish a habit, there's a a credible and reliable statistic from unknown origin
Yep.
that it takes 66 days. Sam says 21. So at
Yeah, I thought it was
least
21.
So somewhere
I'm
between,
pretty sure it's 10,000.
So
Because I
somewhere
think
between-
expertise is the same as I have it, you know?
that's true. It's
So-
habitually being really good at
Exactly.
something on accident without thinking about it.
Exactly.
All right. So hopefully Adam's, fascism
Yeah, so
gets
I
cured.
got to figure out, can I just like run on it anyway and just hope for the best? I don't know what's going to happen. But
Or do you have to swim now? Do you have to do? You could probably do handstand walks, which is
true. I
a
haven't tried
great.
those yet.
It's like running, but
Yeah.
you die because all the blood goes in your head and then it explodes.
Yep.
So you got options.
Yeah.
You got fitness options. All right. Well, let's get on to some questions. These questions come from our listeners over at podcast.bscotch.net. So if you'd like to get your question onto a future episode, definitely not the current one because we're recording this in the past. But if you want to get onto a future episode, get over there, put your question in the text box. First pair of questions.
Whoa.
Oh, shit. 2 questions at once. Are you guys ready?
I'm super ready.
All right. First of the pair comes from FiveIron. How can I throw money at you without having to order something from the store? I live in Guatemala and having stuff shipped is not really a good idea over here. Don't ask why. So maybe aside from the expense, there might be some other shady thing going
Well,
on.
I think we do take mail for granted because that is kind of just crazy that you just type in something like, hey, I want this package, and then it just appears.
Somebody's like, all right, it's going to be 40 cents.
yeah. And it just appears. I don't even
Which
know.
I think is particularly interesting, at least in the U.S., because of the fact that mail carriers and mail companies seem to have no responsibility for what happens to packages.
Yeah, if they go
So-
away,
So despite that fact that like nobody is held responsible if something goes wrong except for like the company tried to ship it.
Right.
So despite that fact, somehow the system still works. It's really amazing.
it's pretty good.
Yeah.
All right, so the second question comes from MySecretWeapon, who said, it was already something I was thinking about, and your conversation at the end of the last episode prompts me to ask, what about a Buttersub Shenaniscription option where we can just give you more money? And whatever that's worth is up to you guys. I'm a new fan, but a big one, and I love to support great devs.
It's interesting. So I guess to both the points,
How do people just give us more money? That's the core.
this is probably my favorite question I've ever been asked. I think
We don't really have a good mechanism.
we don't,
for that.
and we've talked talked off and on about the potential of doing something like a Patreon before, but all of them entail doing other stuff. So if we did a Patreon, for example, it wouldn't be the case that we would be happy to just
put it up.
Just say, hey,
just
yeah,
go. Give
we're
us
gonna-
money if you want.
yeah, we're going to do the exact same things before, but now this. And so what that means is that every single aspect of sort of us opening a channel for people to just give us money on
Also
our part
cost us money.
costs us time.
Yeah.
Or money, depending on what
Time is money, friend.
That's right.
And so,
Friend.
so that's actually mainly why we haven't done anything like that. So the only ways to do it currently, if you don't want to ship anything to you, is probably actually through the comic page.
Yes. Go to our itch page.
Well, you can buy anything. I think everything on Edge is technically sellable, right? All of our
I think we
games.
didn't. All of ours we turned off all donations and stuff.
Oh.
Yeah, because we had to go back and review the license terms for the music.
Oh,
Yeah,
right. Yeah,
but
yeah.
the comic is ours.
Yep.
We have rights for it.
Yeah, so you
Completely.
could use that as a money laundering vehicle to pass money.
Yes.
If you really want to, and then you get. I mean, that's the thing is you already get the comic for free. So this
It's
is
a
kind of
free
problem.
comic that you could just give us.
Well, it's the same
donations.
deal. It's because we don't want to do the extra work of having like tiered systems where if you pay this much, you get this and whatever. So we don't want to do that, which means we actually can't provide, or actually not can't, we won't provide additional value in some sense for people who are like
Well, but also
doing a monthly
importantly,
donation or whatever.
these couple of fine folks who asked us these questions are in the tiniest minority
Yeah.
of our total player base, such that most people definitely don't want to give us any money, but definitely
They're
not more
really
money.
unhappy with how much they've already given us, even though for most of them that is $0.
Yeah. On account of the tens of millions of pirates.
Yeah,
that
but
we
I think I bet
Well,
better.
it's only just over. It's like 12 million.
Well, I guess here's a different
just for
question.
Crashlands.
Because I think
Yeah.
I think a different question is not how can you give more money to someone who you want to support, but just how can you give more value, right? Because they're two different things. So money's nice and all, but like we don't have a good mechanism for it, and we also don't want to create a mechanism because it creates extra work. So the question is, what else is there? And when you think about it in terms of value, as you as a person who likes a particular dev or a game or whatever else, there's actually a bunch of ways that you can essentially give us what is equivalently money, right? And that's so you have a friend who you know is also into games. If you're like, hey, listen to this podcast. You've given us some value. Granted, there's no dollar amount attached to it, but there is some value attached to it. So it's things like that if you're really wanting to sort of, assist with either the community or whatever else, just be active in the Discord or share the podcast with people, share the games with people. Just generally be there.
Help noobs on Reddit.
Yeah. Generally be there for us.
It's like being a good parent, you just got to be there.
Yeah, exactly. So
sometimes showing up is all that matters.
You just got to show up.
That's what I would say. That's my answer. So if you don't want to dump money into the H page, then just be there for us.
Yeah. I think it might be a good idea if we can find some like sort of tip jar style mechanism just to have it available at some point. But the thing is, like, we're not going to make that system. It has to already exist where we can just integrate it, where somebody else is offloading all the bullshit because it's one of the, actually, I was Googling this a little bit because I saw this question over the weekend and talked to my wife, who also was kind of familiar with some of the things. I was kind of looking at what some of the things are that are available. And everywhere you look, you're just reminded why we can't have nice things, So there's this really cool service. It's sort of like a competitor to, I don't even competitor is probably not the right word, but alternative to Patreon, which is fully the creators of it don't even take any money. You can just separately pay them, like to basically tip them, right? But because that's how they're doing it, which is really cool, very noble.
They can't meet any.
They can't meet any costs, so they only use PayPal because if you use credit cards, now the credit card processor is now liable for chargebacks. And I don't know if any of you listeners know it, but it costs, anytime you issue a chargeback, it costs $15 to the company who sold the thing, right? So
even if you bought a thing for 99 cents on,
even if you bought a thing for 99 cents, exactly. And so a lot of, we're always complaining, like everyone's always complaining about the cut that all the stores take from our revenue when we sell our games and stuff, but included in their profit margin is the cost of chargebacks, which is not insignificant, especially if you're on mobile. So now this company just can only use PayPal because of this mechanism they wanted to use. Right now, of course, that's useless. And then like Patreon's doing all kinds of weird shit with their thing because they have investors they're trying to keep happy. And so there's if you know of a good service, just tell us about it.
Just a tip jar. Just a tip jar service.
And if it was like a subscription style one or had that option, that would be really like for people who just love the podcast and want to sort of like do like a monthly contribution or something. I would love to have that be an option.
So we could people take donations through Twitch somehow, but I don't know how that happens. What we need is a separate service called Tiply.
That's a good name.
Or Tipster or something.
Tiply.
It's just a thing where you give people tips. The end.
And with lots of options on how you do it. That'd be stuff.
Monthly, daily, weekly.
Maybe that exists. Actually, I'm going to Google Tiply real quick.
Tiply.
That sounds like a real.
It's got to be a real thing. Anything that ends in Lee is already.
And it is based in San Francisco.
Yeah, I'm sure it's in. Yeah. All right. Well, next question comes from Divo. Do you three still play video games together? Do you prefer online or in-person gaming?
Tiply does exist, by the way.
Yeah, that's what I figured. Let's use it. All right. Do we still play video games together? What?
There's something that you forgot about that I know we're in questions now, but you didn't mention the Shenanijam.
Oh, that's true.
Probably before we go any fucking further,
the Shenanijam.
It's coming up in a week and a half.
It's coming up, 2 Fridays.
There's going to be one more podcast before the Shenanijam recap podcast.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yeah. So the Shenanijam, just go to shenanijam.com. It is our worldwide 48-hour, it's actually 72-hour game jam. You don't have to spend the whole 72 hours just if you're worried about that.
Yeah, you should do some sleeping.
Anywhere from 0 to 72 hours, depending on your, personal level of commitment.
Yep.
We currently have about 230 something people signed up. So it's really getting up there.
Yeah. Last year we were, I think, number 10 for the largest
whole year
for the largest jams on itch.
Yes.
So
I think we can overcome at least like 3 spots.
Yeah. I want to get up in like the top 5 would be ideal.
I want to at least get above like 9.5 somewhere above
just
there.
slightly.
I think it uses a floor algorithm or a floor function probably.
Yes. So perfect.
Yeah.
So otherwise, if you have no experience with making games,
that's fine.
Perfect. That's even better.
Get in there.
We have a partnership or a sponsorship from Yo-Yo Games, and they are the creators of Game Maker Studio, which is what we use to make our games. And they're providing free temporary licenses for their software. And it's very easy to learn. It's very easy to use. It comes with lots of tutorials and stuff like that. So If you say, well, I don't know how to program, I don't know how to do art, no problem. Game Maker has capabilities to help you do all that stuff. So check that out. And that's at shenanijam.com. All right, next question comes from Divo. Do you three still play video games together? Do you prefer online or in-person gaming? Like, first question is, did we ever play video games together?
Not that much.
Not
actually.
really.
A little bit. Yeah.
Not really. We played Unreal Tournament way back in the
on
day.
the lands
Forever ago.
Unreal Tournament 1999, Game of the Year edition.
Yep. Gold.
And then I watched Seth play Final Fantasy, and I watched Adam play Doom.
I watched
The youngest brother, so I did a lot of watching.
I watched somebody play Ratchet and Clank.
Probably me.
I think I watched Sam play Ratchet and Clank. Sam and I played a bunch of Lego Star Wars.
Yes. And
think
Star
back when I
Wars
was in
Battlefield, whatever it's called.
One of the battles.
I don't know.
Battle Star
Battle
Wars
and then
fight.
Battle
some
F
word.
Yeah.
Battle F word. Yes. Yeah. And then there was a short time, I was playing a lot of Left 4 Dead for a while.
Yep. played
With
that.
my wife.
Yeah, we did
And
that over a
so-
holiday.
Yeah, so I would kind of rope one of the two in like now and then. But yeah, I don't know. I think we all kind of end up on our own, like just on our own gaming kicks that just sometimes we pass through. So Sam was playing a lot of Terraria for a while. Then I was playing a lot of Terraria for a while, but I mostly played with my wife. He mostly played with his wife. And
We
then
just would, like,
we did have a
show up-
shared map that we would that we played around in for a few hours. And then we all just went and did our own things again.
Yeah,
So,
I built a
don't know.
glass castle on that map. It was pretty
Oh, that's
good.
true. Yeah.
Yeah, Seth just showed up, built a glass castle, and then left.
I was like, I did my thing.
Yeah. He's like, I'm done.
Enjoy the glass. Enjoy
I've
the
done
glass.
my part.
I made a glass castle that went upward, and then it also had a stone mirror that pointed downwards. I was like, well, I did it now. I made two castles.
Yeah.
One hell castle and one glass. One glassel.
Very fancy.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah. I mean, every now and then we also do stuff like, one of us will play RimWorld or Kerbal Space Program or something, and then we'll be super pumped about it, and then at least one of the others will check it out. But yeah, I don't know. I think the games that we played the most of, so I played the most of things like World of Warcraft or Eve, or like Rocket League. And I don't think you guys ever got into those games.
I mean, I played quite a bit of WoW, but we didn't play together because I was tended to be doing my own alt fever thing.
Well, I should say, proportionally, we didn't quite equal.
Correct. No. You played a lot.
I played probably 30 times more of that than you did.
I was a
At
tourist.
least.
Yeah, you were just stopping by. I was born in it.
But the thing is, like, we have a very good time playing together. We just don't do it, I think, because of, I don't know.
It's busy.
it is
We're adults. We got things going on.
Yeah, I mean, for me, when it comes to video games, like I just get an itch that I need to scratch sometimes, but it's rarely just somebody will say, "Hey, you want to come play Rocket League right now?" Where I'll be like, "Yeah, definitely." Like that's Rocket League was exactly what I wanted in my life at this moment in time. For whatever reason, I think games and movies are similar. For me anyway, where I got to be in the right mood.
You got to
for
want to
that
go
thing.
watch a movie.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I got to want to play a game, and then I also got to want to play that specific game.
This is why we need the blockchain, because I feel like if we could sort of commoditize time, it's
So
sort of
that
like,
you could be like, "Hey, I want you to play. I'm gonna pay you.
You
a
put
play
that-
with me coin."
yeah, well, you put that desire on the blockchain.
Yeah.
And then later when I want to play, now we're both on the blockchain. Boom, now it's blockchain.
Get a notification, done.
That sounds better thought out than most blockchain things.
No, but it is the case that, so there's a reason that, as a society, we moved away from the barter system, is because it requires something called a mutual coincidence of wants,
Yes.
which is I have to want a chicken and you have to want whatever the fuck you would trade for a chicken. And I have to have that thing.
A small turkey.
Yeah. And
Basically,
so of course we shifted over to using money, because now it's like, now we don't have to want the same thing at the same time and both have those things. Right. But when it comes to
Unless
something
that
like,
thing is money.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now we can store value in a third entity and use that as a medium of exchange. But of course, time,
I wonder if it's covered by GDPR though.
what? The barter system?
Yeah. There's third party. This third party
Money?
system. Yeah.
Cash is not covered by GDPR. So that's going to be a problem.
Yep.
But of course, time is not, you cannot commoditize
Well,
it.
it's because you can't move it around. You can't
move
asynchronously
it.
be like, I'll give you this 10 minutes whenever you need it.
Unless you put it on the blockchain.
Well, yeah, unless
Yeah,
it's on
exactly.
blockchain.
That's what I'm saying. You see what I'm saying?
Adam, you're just working in the future, man. It's not, I'm trying to be in reality over here.
No, so that's why we don't get those big bucks.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, this is one of the dumb things about being an adult. It's like, as a kid, you just always want to play video games.
Yes.
And you got nothing else going on. So somebody's just like, hey, you want to come over and play Mario Kart? And you're like, fuck yeah.
And then you'll go do that for 6 hours drinking Mountain Dew.
Yeah. And as an
They're
adult,
like, I can't get diabetes. I'm a child.
and as an adult, you're like, hey, you want to come over and play Mario Kart? And they're like, how about like next Tuesday?
Yeah.
I got like 30 minutes. I got about a half hour.
And my least favorite thing is scheduling hangouts.
Oh,
with
God,
people.
yeah.
And as much as I
As an
complain
adult,
about
that's
it,
all you do.
It is all you do. But as much as I complain about it, I'm also just not open to if someone being like, hey, you want to just come over to me? Like, no, I have things that I arbitrarily decided to do this evening. So,
Well, I think as a responsible adult, you plan each day, at least vaguely,
Right.
where you wake up and you have a sense of like, here's how my day is going to go, the things I need to take care of today. At any time, I don't know if how you guys feel about this, but anytime somebody asks me if I want to do something today, I always say no. Someone's like, hey, you want to go out to dinner tonight? I'm like, absolutely not.
Well, actually, for
Catch
me,
me-
I'm almost the opposite, actually, where like I need it to be a surprise and like really close, but also not have to have something else I have to do before, because otherwise my gut reaction to any invitation is to say no matter when it is.
Right.
But if it's like, if it's in the evening and I feel really good right now, I'm like, yeah, sure, that sounds fun. I could go do that. But if you ask me like for 3 days from now, I could look at the calendar and be like, I'm fucking wide open. Like there's nothing happening, but what if I want to play video games? You know?
I won't know how I'll feel then.
Exactly. And so
But
then
I
I
know
have to
how I
say
feel
no.
now.
Yeah.
So this is the real problem. This is why we don't play video games together, because we all have completely different scheduling.
Yeah. Yeah. If you like asked, if you're like, hey, let's on Saturday night, let's all sit down and play like whatever Terraria, right? If you asked me to do that, I'd be like, that sounds awesome.
However,
But also I'm not going to do that.
yeah.
But if you said like,
Because what if I get really into learning Java? On
yeah, who knows?
Stop.
Because now there's a thing in the way of other things that I might want to do. But if it was the end of the workday and you're like, all right, everybody's like getting ready to go home. You're like, you guys do anything tonight? You want to, like, the moment you get home, just literally that moment, we could all jump into a game and just go to town, you know? Then I'd be like, yeah, that's cool. I'll get behind that.
So we need to figure out how to align ourselves.
And maybe we
Align our
can't.
scheduling practices.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who's going to meet who where?
Adulthood is a weird thing, but also with adulthood, if you then have a significant other, and in the mix, they have their own set of peculiarities.
And if you've got 6 children and a dog.
Yeah. All of them, there's now a completely unmanageable combination of things that all have to happen before a plan can come together.
So when I first moved
the overhead gets higher.
into my house, there's these 4 light sockets in the hallway. And in every socket was a completely different light bulb. I noticed that the refrigerator had no light bulb in it. And then I looked and I saw that they had removed the bulb from the refrigerator and replaced one of the hallway light bulbs with a refrigerator bulb. But also, I believe they had 4 kids. And I was like, oh, that explains that.
You don't have time.
You're like, we need a bulb. I have no fucking idea when or how to get one.
But there is one.
But there is one in the fridge. So we're just going to have a dark fridge now. That's just our lives now.
Yeah.
One of the bulbs was also from the stove, the stove top.
What?
Covered in grease.
They're not it's covered in, they're not the right
I don't think
wattage.
you can blame this on the kids at this point.
That's a little extreme.
That's some next level. I don't even know what that is.
That is some next level action. But that's just, it gets complicated. When you're an adult, it gets more complicated, and sometimes it's hard as shit to deal with.
And it definitely, we can all agree, it doesn't need to be. Like, there's no reason it needs to be complicated.
No, clearly somebody took a wrong turn somewhere.
Well, I think it's that we all have these sort of mutual obligations and senses of like time, you know, because it also used to be like, you didn't worry about your time when you were younger. Because again, like you were saying, you got nothing going on, you know, so whatever.
And you got infinite time because you're 7.
Yeah, and you're bored most of the time because you don't even understand the value of your time yet and how much interesting stuff there is.
The time is wasted on the youth, isn't it?
I think
something like
I think youth is wasted on the young.
Young is wasted on the time.
Something about young people and wasting shit.
Whippersnappers need to get off my fucking lawn. How's that?
I was talking to my niece over this past week. I had family staying, and she's 7, and somebody
very busy,
and she was introduced to s'mores for the first time. So she's from India, and bonfires and s'mores are not a common cultural staple over there. And so she was experiencing s'mores, and she was very excited. And her mom was like, do you want to have a s'more party for your birthday? And she's like, that's so far away. And it's just like a few months from now. I was like, well, man, I remember when a few months was a
some
really long
forever.
time. You know, because proportionally, she hasn't been alive that many months. A month is
a big portion.
Substantial. That would be like if somebody told me, like, hey, you want to do something in 3 years? I'd be like, what?
I don't care. Why would I care?
Right. What are you talking about?
Can't even think about that.
Anyways, all right. Well, I think that's all the time we have for this week. So for starters, we'd like to thank our producer, Fat Bard, for making us sound good. Thanks to our community moderators who keep our Discord and forums running. If you'd like to get more involved in the Butterscotch community, you can always hop into our Discord server, which you can find at discord.gg/Bscotch.
And you can join the Shenanijam by going to shenanijam.com.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. There's no slash or anything.
No.
You just
got that.
type
Just
that
right there.
Also, if you'd like to adorn your body with Butterscotch merch, check out our shop over at shop.bscotch.net. Apparently, unless you live in Guatemala, in which case there's something going on there that we don't know
Don't
about.
ship your packages.
Don't ship them.
Don't do it.
We don't. Just don't do it. We don't know what the consequences
maybe there's some
will
sort
be.
of a demon that lives there that is fed by packages.
Yeah, like,
So
it's
that
like a bridge troll. Like when a package goes across the border.
it just gives it strength.
Yeah. Don't feed it. It'll consume us all.
Well, we do have a come-over coupon over on the shop.
Oh, it's still going?
I think it's still going.
Are we just going to do it for? Is it going to be a perpetual sale?
No, probably keep it up to this
All
week.
right. So if you want something like 20% off,
Roughly.
Then
You can go to the shop.bscotch.net and get your stuff, put in the code, get 20% off everything. And we actually did sell quite a few, like 7 boxes.
Yeah.
Of stuff.
Which is a lot.
Which is a lot. So feel free to grab something, and we'll probably turn that off before the next podcast. So get on it.
also, I
If you're
should
waiting
point
around.
out, because this is not our primary function, you know, we are not a retailer sort of by trade. We don't ship packages every day. We ship them on a bi-weekly basis every 2 weeks.
Which could mean either twice a week or once every 2 weeks.
So
Fort Weekly.
So just bear that in mind when
Fort Weekly.
you're choosing your shipping. If you want to ship something to a friend for a birthday or whatever, you know, just remember that that's how that's going to happen. Also, if you'd like to send us some stuff, we have a mailbox. And so if you would like the address, you can find that over at mailbox.bscotch.net. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Goodbye.
Bye.